I always thought that finishing a long-standing project would be what I wanted. One last hurrah to achieve what, at the time, was my original dream. Sure shows how much I knew. As it turns out, maybe I'd have been better off not worrying about completion, but what comes after, and if I'd ever even make it there to begin with. What happens when you finish a project? What happens if you never do? What comes next? Well, I guess that's about all I can do until I get more hardware. Putting some more storage in this place has been a long time coming, and I think this might just spur me into the next big project. Whatever that might be. Just a quick trip and I'll be able to pick up right where I left off. No matter how long this door latch is broken, I can't seem to remember it. It should be simple. Open the latch and flip up the lever. Then you can shut the door. A pain to be sure, but fits the car. God damn it. You see, this is what I get for not fixing things. Man, I kind of neglect this thing. This is the first project car I bought with a clear intention. Ever since I got it, I wanted to upgrade the turbos, since before I owned one actually, but I haven't. A big turbo B5 S4. That's a bucket list car. This is back from the era when cars were overcomplicated. Not because they had to be, but because they could be. Nearly all the cars of this time period have a cult following. M3, AMG, 911 Turbo, just about everything JDM, and even this. Audi's smallest sedan that came to America, built for families. Stick shift, all-wheel drive. And of course, crammed with a twin-turbo V6, very similar to the RS model from Europe. Why? Why not? On top of barely fitting, the engine is really where the car gets its reputation. It's why it's notorious, why it has a cult following. Swap the turbos out and the stock block's good for nearly 3 times the stock power without opening. Unless you're trying to break things, it'll pretty much handle whatever power you want to throw at it. They can get supercar fast for not nearly supercar money, but it came at a cost. Turns out the only way to fit this engine in this car was to put the turbos in a location where they are not accessible unless you pull the engine. Same with a ton of other components. Taking the front end off is generally the first step to almost any service on this car, hence why it's notorious. Cosmic power potential and comic unreliability. Nowadays, these cars aren't exactly easy to keep on the road, which is why you don't see too many. Some would argue that it's Audi's most unreliable or unforgiving platform. And part of me wonders if that dichotomy of potential that could swing either way is why people love it so much. Why I love it so much. Then again, nowadays mine is a glorified daily driver more so than a project, but I'm okay with that. I like that I trust this car, and I'm a little worried that if I mess with it too much, it's going to become a car that I don't want to drive because I don't trust. What I would want to happen the least. Changing it from a car that I know I want to drive every day into one that I never do. Or worse, one with so many issues that I can't. Might as well get rid of it at that point. It's already to the point where it's not really usable on the street. I can't even remember the last time I floored it. No sense in upgrading if this is more than I ever use at the moment. At least that's what I always tell myself. Maybe I'm just happy that it can be my glorified grocery getter. I like my life with the S4 as it is. I can depend on it, and for the last couple years, despite the reputations of it being unreliable, mine hasn't been. More than anything, I'd hate to see it sit, and I think deep down part of me takes solace in the fact that right now, since there's still something to do with it, I don't have to mentally call it a finished project. That sort of finished finality has always scared me in a way. The accountability. What comes after that? Oh, Motoza. Sure been a minute. Oh. Yeah, I guess that's probably why I'm thinking like this to begin with. I've had the parts to finish this car for months now. I just practically hid them from myself. And I'm not even sure why. What's so scary about finishing a project? The finality? Not knowing what comes next? Or is it the job itself that has me like this? I've heard the horror stories. Projects that get torn apart with the intent of being finished, only for the owner to realize that what they liked the whole time was the fact that it was a project. So they sit. Is that what has me in this sort of funk? Am I scared I won't even want it by the end of it? Or am I scared by the fact I've never pulled an engine before? On paper, it sounds so doable, but every time I open this box, I get this feeling that it won't be. Maybe that's why I keep closing the box back up. Call it irrational fear, premonition, whatever it is, it's been consuming me. For months now, I've made myself busier and busier and busier, putting off a straightforward job for nothing more than a hunch. After all, I like my life with the S4. I can depend on it. It works, and it doesn't sit. So why would I want to risk changing that?
It's not that fast, but it's alright for a daily.
Wait, what?
It's not as fast as my B5, but it's alright for a daily.
I thought you said it was slow.
Well, yeah, it's way slower than my B5. I mean, isn't yours faster too? You put those turbos on, right?
Not yet.
What? Why? It's like a weekend job at best.
But I could have sworn it was faster than that. It's not that it's not quick, but maybe I should do the turbos. I mean, I have everything with me, sitting in a box 2 rooms away. I could just do it and be done. That is the last thing I wanted to do to the car. At least my original dream for what I wanted the car to be would be done. Plus, even though the stock turbos are fine now, everyone online calls them a ticking time bomb. For all I know, I could be 500 miles away from hearing the dreaded turbo lady sing. And that would really be game over. Maybe it's worth turning my reliable daily back into a project, more than it ever has been. Take it apart so I can build it back better, to actually finish it. Not to mention everyone I talk to seems to think it's a good idea too. Everyone I know who's finished a project tells me it's worth the effort.
Yeah, man, go for it. Turbos were a lot of work on mine, but it's worth it.
Come on, man, do it.
Why are you even questioning this?
You're almost done. You're like super close. It can't be that bad, right?
Well, I don't have one of those, but the Fiero, doing that was absolutely worth it.
You've talked about it for long enough.
Why not? You've already got the parts. It's like a weekend job at best. I can come help if you want.
That's a lot of steps. Lots and lots of steps. But each and every one is simple. It's just there's a lot of them. I guess I can boil it down into 4 stages. Just 4. Pull the engine, swap the turbos, put it back in, tune it, and I'm back where I am now. Just like Quentin said, it's a weekend job at best. You got this. Maybe I should stop right here. I could shift into first, forget the whole idea, live with this car as a reliable daily, and take solace in the fact that I like it right now. Or I could shift into reverse and see what happens. No matter how rational doing nothing is, part of me is still drawn to that potential. I fell in love with this car because it was a project, and part of me hopes that doing this will maybe rekindle that feeling, that maybe I'll find some of that happiness I had when I first picked it up, before it was running or driving, back when I was just replacing random parts on the side of the street in front of my parents' house. Just doing that used to be enough. Here's to that, I guess. I've never pulled an engine before, but I've heard organization is key. So as nervous as I am about it, I'm going to take it one step at a time. Think about it as isolated systems and keep those pieces together. As apprehensive as I am about this, part of me is excited. I have no real idea what I'm doing, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't happy working on a car I kind of fell out of love with. Of course I run into a hang-up right away. One of the bumper bolts is both seized and stripped, so I have to take it off the hard way, with the crash support. Still, the further it comes apart, the more I'm starting to realize how weird it is how little I've actually had to fix this car. I mean, even with the reputation it has, I've only drained this coolant once, and that was for timing back when I first bought it. The only thing this car's ever leaked was power steering, but I'll be able to fix that now. It seems like Quentin's making good on his offer. He came over to help. He's done this a number of times on his B5, so he was acting as a sort of coach. And for something as foreign as an engine pull is to me, I really appreciate that. And he didn't bring his today, of course, but I guess I'd be driving the new project too if I were him. As more parts come off, I'm starting to see a bit of a crossover point. It's looking like everything after this might just be better or easier with two people, especially if we work at the same time. The drive shaft and both CVs need to be disconnected. Easiest to do when you have someone pressing the brake inside the car. And coincidentally, while you're pressing the brake, you can spend your time completely dismantling the shifter assembly. So it's not wasted time for either party. It's a chance to develop a rhythm, to make progress in two different places concurrently. The only things holding the engine in place now are motor mounts and the drive shaft. And I've got to lift the engine to do anymore. All of this is starting to feel real. The finish line job that I dreamed about doing ever since I bought the car as an abandoned project. It's actually happening. Well, unless we've missed anything, the only thing holding the engine in place is the gasket between the drive shaft and the transmission. Looks like since it's never been removed, it turned to a sort of glue. And in my head, I've always thought that pulling an engine would be a graceful or precise affair. But from what I'm quickly learning, it's, not. It's got about as much tact as a sledgehammer. The engine is officially out of the car. Surreal, and it only happened in a day, too. Sure, it's night now, but at least it feels like at this pace, Quentin's right. This might just be a weekend job. I didn't sleep great last night. I kept having those nightmares about what this car could turn into. Will I ever finish it? Or will it stay like the rest? A forever unfinished project. And for that matter, where do I draw the line with what I can do to the car while the engine's out? It seems like one of those situations that could spiral as deep as you want to go. I could stick with the obvious, swap the turbos and call it good, or I could let it spiral, fix one piece at a time until it's a new car. But if I did that, I'd never drive it. So a happy medium is what makes sense to me. Do what I can with the time I have, and see if there's anything that's worth hanging up the weekend-long target. And I guess the only thing that might pose an issue is the clutch. When I bought the car, the previous owner was adamant that he already replaced the clutch with a big turbo-ready one. But I don't know that for sure. I believe it based on how it feels, but I'd be quite the fool if I didn't check it while it was this far apart. It would suck to do this much work just to learn that the engine has to come out again. Plus, it's not like I'm not gonna leave the car better than I found it. In taking it apart, it was practically missing half of the single-use hardware. The turbos are in pretty solid condition. Little bit of shaft play, crusty from the valve cover leak. All in all, nothing too terrible. I guess it is a preventative swap then. These would have worked just fine for many more miles. The clutch, however, I'm not too sure about yet. From what I see, this is a Luck branded pressure plate, and what looks to be an RS4 clutch, and not just the clutch either. Last I remembered, the stock flywheel was not made by AWE. This is a lightweight one, and unfortunately, clutches are usually designed to work with specific flywheels, so the one I was planning on using just might not. And what's worse is, even though this is a stage 3 clutch, it is nearing the end of its life. There's hot spots, and there's hardly any friction surface left on the throwout bearing itself. Not to mention, the flywheel has a replaceable surface, not one that's resurfaceable. So as much as I want to put everything back together now, that would be a mistake. There's a good chance this clutch would have started slipping soon on the stock turbos, let alone the upgrades that I'm putting on. At least the rear main seal looks good. So if the worst thing I have to do is overnight a clutch and a flywheel surface, that's not the end of the world. It can't take that long, so what's the worry? Well, actually quite a bit. This flywheel is a complete rabbit hole. I was planning the whole time on having the stock dual mass resurfaced. That is a lot cheaper than buying a flywheel. What makes it even harder is the flywheel that I'm trying to find a friction surface for is completely and entirely obsolete. AWE hardly has a record of even making flywheels. And budget-wise, I'd have to wait a couple weeks to afford a brand new one in addition to the clutch. Not too reassuring for a weekend job, though with my back against a wall, there's only one place I can really turn: the forums. There's gotta be something on here that can help me. Some indication of what this setup is. So far, my hopes of finding a replacement surface are dwindling. From the looks of it, AWE never made these flywheels. They just simply stamped their branding on one made by a third party. Same thing Fidanza and a bunch of other companies did. And from what archived forums mentioned, the AWE one was actually manufactured by ASCO, and they still make flywheels for Porsches. And lo and behold, they look identical despite being for a different car and a different era. But the inner and outer diameters line up. The holes even look the same, and you can still buy the friction surface. So this, at roughly a tenth of the price of a new flywheel, is worth the gamble. And finding a clutch that'll work with a flywheel which is no longer being made or sold should be as simple as looking at the forums again. People did use it in the past, so I just need to find one that was used back then and is still available. Then again, there's no guarantee this is gonna work. It's not even listed for the same platform. This is just a guess based on an internet rabbit hole. Not to mention the fact that ASCO doesn't have overnight shipping. So all I can really do is wait and hope that this rabbit hole and this idea works. Part of me is still worried that this car is just going to sit like this forever. That feeling eats away at me. I don't want that to happen. And what's worse is sitting here with time that I'm able to spend working on something, but having nothing to work on. I've got to do something. A whole weekend spent cleaning the engine and the bay. Talk about reaching for straws. And it looks like I'm gonna have to keep reaching. I just got word that the flywheel's gonna be delayed another week due to weather. Same with all the other parts I need to put on the car. But I have time to spend, and I can't stand it going to waste. So if I can't improve the car until parts show up, why don't I try and improve the space the car is in? Is this just a distraction? Maybe, but I just can't stand sitting here. Thank God for the mad people at Harbor Freight still willing to have a parking lot sale in a snowstorm. It's like they know I'm not going to turn down a good deal. Here's to hoping that even if I don't spend this weekend working on the car itself, doing something productive will help me feel at least a little bit better. I can't help but feel like this is just me avoiding the problem. The fact that these turbos might not be going as simply as I thought they would. At least the storage is nice and the space is more useful. They're finally here. Longer than a week, and it's too late to have time to do any of this as it is, but I have to know if this friction surface is going to work on the flywheel or not. The last thing I need is to be ordering more parts. Bingo. Looks like that gamble paid off. Now all that's left is to actually install it. Too bad the existing bolts are entirely stripped. After everything and all that worry, I think this is gonna work. It's already so late, but I've got half a mind to start putting this all back together now. At least I did. You gotta be kidding me. The flywheel bolts I was sent look nothing like the ones that came off the car. And they're single-use too, aren't they? What's another week of waiting at this point? Already 2 weeks for a weekend job. I wonder what that says more about me or the car itself. As much as I like working on this, I can start to feel this project slipping from the realm of enjoyable to the realm of frustrating. And I'm once again running out of things to do while I wait for parts. So I figured I'd clean up the valve covers, the intake manifold, and get the engine ready. It's funny how my mind seems to come up with things to do when I'm trying to feel productive. Or at least trying to convince myself that I shouldn't have listened to my gut from the start. I was originally planning on doing most of this when the engine was back in the car, but here we are. If I'm going to increase the amount of boost the car's running, I also need to increase the fuel it has. Upgrading from 400cc injectors to 1000 should do the trick. In addition, I'll change the map sensor out too. I wish I could say that it feels like I'm making progress, but it just feels like I'm trying to occupy time. Sure, they needed to be done, but I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this. It's just a little strange to be doing all this work on an engine that, for all I know, has no real date of going back in. A couple more days passed, and I convinced myself that it was time to put on the turbos. These are hybrids, and they should flow quite a bit more air than stock, as evident by how much larger they are. And there's a whole number of options you could get for this car as an upgrade. But in my opinion, the best part about the car is the response that the tiny turbos have. I like the torque down low. I feel like there's better cars for high RPM power, so these are just going to have a similar power curve with a much higher ceiling. And allegedly, they're bolt-ons, which right now I do believe. The driver's side fits, but it's tight. The passenger side, however, just doesn't seem right. The wastegate's making contact with the motor mount, and it still needs to go further that direction. Plus, clocking it would only really make it worse. I get that it's supposed to be a tight fit, but do I really need to put my whole body weight into forcing the turbo where it needs to be? Quentin's here again, and he thinks the same thing, that the fitment is just off. It's making contact in 3 places. And at this point, all I can really think to myself is, well, that's just my luck. I have to move forward though, even if it takes me all night to get it to work. The damn thing finally threaded, though it did take my whole body weight. And even then, the threads feel iffy. Getting these mounted should have taken maybe an hour. Not a whole day. At least I've only got a single banjo bolt left. What's the point in listing a product as fitting when it clearly doesn't? And I don't know. I could be crazy, but to my knowledge, flywheel bolts shouldn't bottom out before even making contact with the flywheel. Then again, maybe it's the flywheel itself. But if that were the case, I probably wouldn't have ordered from 3 different sites and got 3 differently sized bolts, all claiming to work. Something doesn't quite add up, and I still really don't know which one's the right one. But as they're each about $10 a pop and can't be returned, I guess at this point, this car is going to get what it gets, even if they're not exactly the same as what came off, for some reason. As long as they don't bottom out, I figure it's okay. And I still don't really know if the clutch itself is going to work. I got this one specifically because it'll hold the power, and forums from 2002 claim that it works perfectly with the flywheel, which looks to be the case. And I know I should be happy putting a new clutch next to new turbos on a car I really liked, but I just can't shake the gut feelings. Not to mention, a new clutch needs to be broken in. 500 gentle city miles. Sure wasn't planning on that, and considering how infrequently I actually drive, that might take a while. Or at least add a couple weeks to this never-ending weekend job. I can't keep thinking like this though. I love this car. I really do. Maybe not in this moment, but I feel like it has to still be there. Spent so long waiting for parts that life, for both Quentin and I, became busy again. When I used to have a whole day to spend on the car, now I had an hour, if I was lucky. Nothing I could really do anything about, but I just wish timing was a little different. At least I did manage to finally source a replacement door latch, and swapping this actually did make me happy. Something I can start and finish with a notable impact. Thank God our schedules finally lined up again. Seems like we have the next 4 evenings to get this car back on the road. Given how long it took us to get the engine out, it should be plenty of time. At least if the car doesn't try and fight us the whole time. Still, first step is bleeding the clutch. Given where the slave is on this car, we might as well try it while it's suspended. One person cracks the bleeder loose and the other presses the pedal. In an ideal world, this pushes out all the air in the system, returning hydraulic pressure. That's exactly why it's so unfortunate that this world just ain't ideal. Still no pressure. No matter though, forums say that the engine needs to be level, so might as well get motor mounts on there.
Is there like a nut on the top of this one?
The issue with doing it this way is the slave, being on top of the transmission, which is now in the car, is nearly inaccessible. You're doing this completely blind. You can't see when it's open or when it's closed. And with all the brake fluid on your hands, you can't feel it either. Still, in the past when he'd done this, it hadn't taken more than 30 minutes. Given it's already been an hour, I don't know if that's the case here. Every time we start to build pressure, it seems to just disappear. I don't know if we're sucking in air, or the system's too aerated to bleed, or we're just doing it wrong. Either way, the plan was to have the car on the ground today, and I fear at this point, with a completely dead clutch, that's not gonna happen. As we haven't had luck with the classic method, I guess there's no reason not to try something else. Might as well try the new Mighty Vac I got. Basically a vacuum pump. That way we can pull the bubbles out, as opposed to simply pushing the pedal and hoping they come out. I think it's actually making a difference, too. It's been about an hour now, and we do have pedal pressure. It's decent, but it just disappeared all of a sudden. The metal line feeding fluid into the slave popped out. I think this car just sucked in all the air that we pushed out, and then some. So we're back even further than square one. It's night again, and we still have no pedal pressure. None at all. Not for lack of trying. It feels like nothing's working, or something's broken. Might as well call another one of my mechanic friends. 3 people trying to bleed a single clutch? How hard could that be? Of course, the first time he touches it, it works perfectly. Sure, the clip on the underside of the pedal looks like it's coming off, but we have pressure. It feels like a real clutch. I think this nightmare might finally actually be done.
Lost that pin again? What's that fucking sleeve popped out? Oh, yeah.
What we were fighting last time is
It did pop out.
slave.
Things just aren't going as planned, are they? I guess I might as well readjust the clip down here, just in case that's the problem. Then try and figure out why the line keeps popping out of the slave.
Try to pull the line out and see if you can manually get it out.
Yep.
Not so good. Especially not so good for a hydraulic line. I guess all we can really do is adjust the clip and try and get it to sit tighter. And what's worse is it seems like we're not getting any bubbles with the mighty vac now. Before we were getting some, but never zero. I guess we might as well try another method. A pressure bleeder on top and a mighty vac on the bottom. Pushing fluid and sucking it out at the same time. Not to mention the microscopic elephant in the room. 2000's Audi, in their wonderful brilliance, decided to make this bleeder screw out of plastic. And I fear that it's starting to strip. The only thing that can really grab it anymore is the socket. I thought this was supposed to be simple. We've been trying things non-stop and just don't know what's going on. I guess we'll take a step back, call for help, and leave the vacuum pump on it. Quentin's friends with an Audi Master Tech. And if he can't help, 2 mechanics and whatever I am, I don't know if anybody can.
Going down, I mean, you could have a bad, like, clutch master cylinder, too. I'd pull the slave out and take a look at it as a whole.
Okay.
The first time you push on the clutch pedal, it'll blow the guts out the end and soak your clutch with brake fluid and all that stuff.
Okay.
So, but that's if you like really miss. But I've seen it twice where, do you know what clutch used to be in the car then? If it had that pressure plate. So the flywheel may be your problem. If it had an RS4 clutch in it previously, you might have to just go back to a regular S4 clutch or flywheel if you bought an S4 clutch.
It says they're all cut to the same spec, though, because they're all manufactured by ASCO.
ASCO makes what part of it?
The lightweight flywheel. That's who makes the AWE one, because you can't buy the AWE one. They haven't made it in years.
Yeah.
But the face is the same as the ASCO one, which you can still buy, and you can still buy faces for.
Yeah, I'd probably pull that out and take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll start with the slave. Then, worst case, just pull the engine again and get the trans off. Yeah, I do think back to
We're making plans to pull the slave, which likely means taking the engine back out. I really don't want to do that. This has been a nightmare. No, this has been my nightmare. The exact one I had before I started. Nothing fits well, none of the parts work. It's fighting everything we do to it, and I'm starting to wonder if I even should have started this to begin with. What am I even saying? It's not like I want the car to just sit in the garage broken forever. Still, I don't know if I have it in me to pull the engine right this second again. I guess it has been bleeding for over an hour with the midi-vac, but it's not like I saw any bubbles while on the phone. Maybe all we needed to do was wait. Quentin doesn't think it's going to change a thing, but I can't help but feel like I just need to see if it'll just work. If nothing else, maybe it would motivate me to want to pull the engine right back out. So I guess it's not like things will get worse by trying. The funny thing is, though, maybe doing nothing was the key the whole time.
So it's basically accelerated gravity bled for the last hour. And now it works perfectly.
Yep.
Because I feel like we didn't do anything and it's working now.
Well, I mean, a lot of people just gravity bleed their clutches too. They say it's fine.
Should I be concerned that it feels a lot lighter than it did before? I'm paranoid. I feel like it's not going to work.
Hey, so we also just got some good news.
What's that?
So it's just been like gravity bleeding for roughly the past hour, and we tightened it up. We have full pedal fuel now.
Nice.
So
I was just gonna...
Frustrating, it took us 5 days to figure out that doing nothing was the right answer all along, but I guess it did work out in the end. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't skeptical or worried it was going to pop out on the freeway. But either way, it works now. And that means I'm back to the point where everything's under my control. All I have to do is get the car back together. And that's a good feeling after nearly a season of beating my head against a wall. finally back together. Man, it feels like it's been ages. And I've got a break-in tune on it as well. Unless something is seriously wrong, the car should not physically be able to make more than 14 psi. But I won't get to see that till halfway through break-in anyways. Either way, while I could and want to start it now, I think it'd be right to wait a day until Quentin can get here. He helped me with the whole thing after all.
How many times should I do that?
You're probably good now.
Yeah.
It builds pressure pretty quick.
That sounded bad. Sounded real bad.
This car has oil pressure-based tensioners, and generally they're a little rattly if you haven't started it in a long time. Still, it's not normally that loud. We didn't touch anything timing related, so nothing should be making contact. In other words, I think we're fine for another attempt. Minor heart attack avoided. Still, a long ways to go though. Hopefully the 500 miles of break-in doesn't take ages. But at this point, my confidence in this car is completely gone, so I'm really not sure what to expect. While we were bleeding the coolant, Quentin mentioned that he felt like he was more excited that the car was running than I was. And I don't really know why, but I think he's right. It feels nice to have the car running again, but I can't shake the feeling like this is just the beginning. I don't really know what the future holds for this car, but I guess a worry like that isn't a big enough reason to not get the car out of the garage and take it on the first drive, is it? The car honestly runs and drives just like I remember. Having to pull over because something's smoking under the hood is new though. Thankfully, it looks like almost all of it's coming out of the reservoir itself. It looks like one of the clamps didn't get fully tightened, so hopefully that's all it is. Still, technically speaking, this is the first time this car's ever made me pull over for an issue. In my entire ownership, too. Yeah, the engine did just go back in, but still, the irony's not lost on me. Surreal, but all that's really left is braking in the clutch. 500 miles of slow speed driving. No full throttle, no aggressive shifting, just taking it easy. How long could this really take? Given I've only made it about 8 miles and I'm smoking again, probably quite a while. Looks like it's the plastic flange that goes to the heater core from the back of the engine, and I know for a fact that that's not a part that they stock locally, so I think I'm gonna have to wait again. Nothing I'm not used to, I guess. Nice. really hope this fixes the issue. If not that, then maybe the new cap I put on will. If it is leaking still, it shouldn't be leaking as fast as it was. I just hope I can start getting the miles in now. I think the system's bled too. The heater's been on while it's running for the last 20 minutes now, and the level's not dipping anymore. I guess now truly begins the break-in 500 miles. I just wish I still had the trust I used to in this car. If it's breaking every 5 miles, I'm not exactly looking forward to 500. It feels like I'm in a never-ending loop. Feels like the last 5 weeks all I could think about was how excited I was to finally drive this car again. And now that I'm driving it every day, I'm realizing I've lost the trust I had in it, and part of me doesn't even want to anymore. Wake up every morning, top off the coolant, convince myself that it's still bleeding even though I really know something's not entirely right. But I'd never admit that because I'd already taken so long and there's no way there's more to do. I check the mileage, and every day I get confused why it's not further along. I'm taking the long way everywhere, watching my desire to drive the car slowly wane. It feels like it did before, but I just can't shake the feeling that it's not what it was. I'm not even at 300 miles yet. I'm starting to think that something's wrong with the car, too. It shouldn't be bleeding still, but every morning I'm still low on coolant. Not enough to be outright concerning, but notable amount. That aside, there is some good news. The tuner said I can start slowly getting into boost. No full throttle yet, but I got the clear to do some partial throttle testing. Thankfully, I'm in the middle of nowhere already. The log's already started, and the car's ECU is limiting it to just wastegate boost. So really, what's the worst that could happen? I don't really have many choices. The car's got hardly any coolant in it after the line popped off, and I only brought about half a bottle. I should have been smarter. I should have had water with me, or more coolant. I got too complacent thinking that this is the same car I took apart. Why is there pressure in the coolant system anyways? I mean, the only way that would happen is if... I need to think. First things first, I need to find a way back into town, and I don't think it's going to run very long on half a bottle of coolant. So my options are wait for someone to pass by, or limp it 3 miles to the nearest gas station, turning it off and waiting on the side of the road every time it overheats. At least that way I'm doing something. Thank God for the rain. I still have no idea why this even happened, but at least I was logging the whole time. So when I make it back, I can see if anything on that log indicates what the issue was. I just have to make it. I do wish I heard something a little bit different from the tuner though. Right now, the car shouldn't make more than wastegate boost, 14 or so PSI. But this car, under partial throttle, managed to make 22 psi before popping the line off, so it was overboosting, meaning there's a problem with the turbo system as well as whatever's going on with the coolant system and the pressure. I didn't want to fix it. I didn't even want to know what was wrong with it. I just wanted it to be over. Just wanted to be done. So I was. I pretended like it all never happened. I didn't diagnose the car, and I just kept braking in the car like I had been, topping off the coolant every morning and driving the same path. In my head, I convinced myself that if I never finished the break-in, I wouldn't have to answer those questions. I wouldn't have to own up to the fact that I might have made this car more unreliable. Or if it was an easy fix, figure out what happens after that. I don't know which is worse, so I just chose not to ask. What's the point of finishing a project if you're just gonna park it? If you drive and enjoy it more as a project, why would you ever finish it? Is that part of the reason that most projects go unfinished? Sold for another project, stored because they're too nice, or abandoned and incomplete, a project for somebody else to pick up. Are those really the only outcomes?
Oh, I sold mine after swapping them. It was kind of done after that.
It's not a project anymore, so I just don't drive it.
Never actually finished one before.
It's just a never-ending spiral.
I always sell things before I get that far.
Well, I don't know. Mine's always broken.
They're never done.
I actually don't drive it much now. It's kind of one of those cars that stays a project forever.
So if I do call it finished, I'll either sell it for another project or store it because I don't want it to become one again. And even if I never finish it and it stays a project forever, there's no guarantee that that feeling of wanting to fix things doesn't wane. And then she'll end up like the majority, an abandoned project. I guess it all pivots around that. Do I like the project or do I like what it's becoming? On the long term, it seems like the outcome's the same either way. If you let it, trying to finish a project might just be the reason you fall out of love with it. More time passed, this time because I let it. In my head, not finishing break-in or diagnosing the car was the easy choice. I wouldn't have to grapple with what comes after finality. I thought I wouldn't have to worry about it sitting or me selling it, or even doing all this work only to make it more of a project than when I first started. Above all, I guess I just didn't want to see the car sit, no matter the reason. But that's the funny thing. It's sitting right now, because I'm choosing not to move forward. And it's like all of a sudden I just woke up someday and realized that. How much does it really matter what happens down the line if I'm not enjoying the present? Does it really matter if I get rid of it, store it, or never finish it? If I enjoyed getting to that state, why can't I just treat it like I used to? I mean, back then, just trying to make it better each week was enough for me. Back then, I never thought I'd even get to this point. I bought the car as somebody else's abandoned project. It made them happy until they moved on, and then it made me happy. And I'm sure someday that I'll move on, be that because I finished it, or because it was time. Maybe that's not as big of a problem as I think it is. Maybe that's just normal. Maybe even if the finish line is closer, I could let that still be enough. And even if it is just a temporary happiness, maybe it's still worth pursuing. It seems as if I have two specific issues. On the one hand, I am continually topping off coolant every time I drive the car. It could be a leak, or it could be something worse. Either way, the majority of it was lost when the hose on the upper radiator popped off. Unfortunately, on this car, that hose commonly pops off if you have a blown head gasket. But there is always the chance that it wasn't clipped in. Unfortunately, there's no way of going back in time and testing if it was unclipped. Either there's a leak and air getting into the system, causing it to pressurize, or, worst case, the engine has a bad head gasket. And on the other hand, there's the overboost issue. As the engine makes more boost, everything spins faster. including the water pump, which could in theory lead to additional pressure in the coolant system and pop off that hose. This would really only happen if that hose was unclipped or with a bad head gasket though. So that's not looking great. But I also still have no idea why there's overboost to begin with. The tune should be requesting exactly a wastegate boost. And on these cars, what controls that is a little electronic valve called the N75. Effectively, this car's boost controller, and the most likely culprit. Otherwise, it's an issue with the wastegates built into the turbos. Maybe there's a leak, maybe the wastegates need adjusted, or at the very worst, maybe the wastegates built into the turbos are bad. The best case is an N75 and an unclipped hose, and the worst case is a bad head gasket and bad turbos. Both of which would bring me back way before where I even started this project. A car that doesn't even have running and reliable attached turbos. But at least then I wouldn't have to grapple with existential questions. It would just be a project in perpetuity. And the easiest way to test this is likely starting with the boost side of things. I can bypass the electrical N75 with a couple hose clamps and some hose adapters. Then the limiting factor will be the physical limitations of the wastegates. If the car overboosts then, it's a turbo problem. If not, it's likely the N75.
This is the N75 right here.
Looks like she's holding a crisp 14 psi. In other words, I don't have to pull the engine for turbos right now.
Oh, thank God.
Not to mention, even though I've been testing boost quite a bit today, I still can't replicate that hose popping off, which lends a lot of credit against the head gasket being the case. I'm really starting to think that it just wasn't clipped in. At least the turbos work. I don't know if I would cry or laugh if brand new turbos went bad this quick. Now I can pretty much narrow it down to either the N75 being broken, which is most likely, or I guess some sort of an air leak, but since it held 14 psi when bypassed, that's less likely. Weirdly, the N75 is passing all of the working tests, but it's clearly not, because when I plug it back in, the car overboosts immediately. Plus, I've been sending these logs off to the tuner, and on his end, everything's looking good. The overboosting is there, but the car looks healthy. And according to the ECU, the N75 is commanding no boost, but we're still getting it. So since they're not a horribly expensive part, maybe the best course of action is to order one and see if that fixes it. And if that doesn't fix the issue, and there are no air leaks, and the ECU is convinced that the N75 is working, well, that means something is quite wrong, but I'm not sure what that would be at that point. What I am sure of is the car definitely has a coolant leak still. A pretty decent one too, from the looks of it. No wonder I have to top it off every morning, but I'll take that over a blown head gasket any day. Unfortunately, where the leak is coming from isn't exactly the easiest to swap. It looks like there's a leak on the heater core itself. And on these cars, to swap that out, you have to pull the entire dash assembly out, which, according to everyone I know who's done both that and pulled an engine on this car, it is the worst of the two jobs. So I'm not doing that right now. I'm just gonna bypass it. This was, in fact, not a weekend job, but at least the N75 valve might be the only thing stopping me from finishing this project. If I swap it in and the car holds 14 psi, I will know with a certainty that this turbo swap was a success. And if it still overboosts, well, I guess that's the car's way of telling me that it wants to stay a project forever. Debatably, more of a project than when I first bought it. What even happens if I actually finish it? Am I supposed to enjoy it until I get bored and then sell it? Or am I supposed to tuck it away, look at it, and never drive it? But that's assuming I finish it to begin with. It could always just stay a project forever. No matter which way this goes, things are uncertain. But I'm starting to think that that might just be normal. Part of life, as they say. Maybe working towards a goal makes you happier than achieving it. Maybe asking the question gives meaning to the answer that you find. And maybe, despite fearing the outcome, it's always worth at least trying to move forward. What happens when you finish a project? What happens if you never do? What lies at the end of that road? What comes next?
Yeah, man, go for it. Turbos were a lot of work on mine, but it's worth it.
Why not? You've already got the parts.
Come on, man, do it.
Why are you even questioning this?
You're almost done. You're like super close.
I always sell things before I get that far.
It's not a project anymore, so I just don't drive it.
I've never actually finished one before.
I've never truly finished a project. They're never done.
Well, I don't know. Mine's always broken.
Oh, I sold mine after swapping them. It was kind of done after that.
I actually don't drive it much now. It's kind of one of those cars that stays a project forever.
It's like a weekend job at best. I can come help if you want.